Merritt Chevrolet announces free factory air conditioning plus free rust proofing with every 1981 Monte Carlo, Malibu, and Citation in stock. Drive away in roomy comfort in one of America's favorite gas-stingy cars. And you'll drive away with free pen seal rust proofing plus factory air conditioning free from Merritt. This offer absolutely ends at 5 p.m. Monday, June 15th. That's only at Merritt Chevrolet, I-94 and Century Avenue across from 3M on St. Paul's East Side.
Arby's creates the great American salad bowl. Yes, sir.
2 lettuce, bacon, tomatoes at Arby's.
Carrots, cheese, cucumbers at Arby's.
Eggs, pickles, beets at Arby's.
Onions, croutons, peppers at Arby's. 6 great salad dressings at Arby's.
You and I want salad bowl at Arby's. Fresh and delicious.
From Arby's, America's roast beef.
Yes, sir.
Our new expanded primetime news hour doesn't compete with your supper or your bedtime. Now, every weeknight at 9, Channel 9 brings you 1 full hour of world and national news from our independent network news bureau, plus all of the local news, weather, and sports. Everything you need to know at a reasonable hour. That's the new primetime news, weeknights at 9, here on Channel 9.
It's a fire inspector. Open up, please.
James Garner is,
Hi. Joe Slade. Radio station KLLB. Gelson Funeral Parlor. I'm here to pick up the Smith remains.
It's all right. I'm with Chase Food Products. We're putting in the new food machines downstairs in the coffee room, okay?
I ain't so sure I believe that. My name is Clifford Morrell. This is Mr. Markowitz. We're from the State Board of Industrial Safety.
No, I'm Rockford.
here's Jimmy, Monday through Thursday night at 10:30 on Channel 9.
You could buy all these copiers and still not get everything that's in the small new Savin 840. That's why you'll find it in blue chip companies and chocolate chip companies. The Savin 840 goes into insurance agencies and secret agencies. Only the Savin 840 gives you fiber optics, a microprocessor, fast first copy time, and more in one copier. The new Savin 840, the first small copier to do it all.
Minneapolis, St. Paul, have we got a surprise for you? Now you can fly American Airlines non-stop to Dallas-Fort Worth, then on to cities all over America, with the service that's made us the #1 choice for domestic travel again and again. It's all part of the package you get only on American.
We're American Airlines, doing what we do best.
Royal O's and McDonald's present a fantastic 3-day tent sale, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Our entire inventory of new and fully reconditioned used cars, sale priced far, far below the competition. 81 Cutlass, America's #1 selling car, as low as $67.50, and many late model used cars priced below Blue Book.
Free McDonald's French fries and orange drink for everyone. So join an unbeatable team for unbeatable prices. You'll get a large order of savings and a side order of fries this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at our McRoyal tent sale.
Kojak cracks down on late night, Monday through Thursday at 11:40.
No, the next victim.
Theo Kojak, a streetwise cop with all the instincts of a predator.
You've got half the detectives in this squad working on some guy who shot 3 pillows and a watermelon to death.
There are people high placed in this police department who think that the killer's doing the...
Kojak's got late night under control, Monday through Thursday at 11:40 on Channel 9.
Got a 12-gauge shotgun.
KMSP TV, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Primetime News is next. Primetime News, the Twin Cities' only primetime news hour, with the latest developments from the Channel 9 newsroom and our independent network news headquarters in New York.
Coming up on Independent Network News, Israel says its jet raid destroyed a secret nuclear bomb plant buried under that reactor in Iraq. The United States charges Russia has violated the Helsinki Accord by bullying Poland. And a stunt woman sues for $35 million for a stunt that went wrong.
Also coming, the man accused of shooting John Lennon says God has told him to plead guilty. Bob Harris with the national weather and Jerry Gerard with the latest on a looming baseball strike.
I'm Jeff Valiant, sitting in for Tony Burden. In local and regional news, a $1.3 billion mistake has been found in the state's new tax law. The developer of the Minneapolis City Center may lose future contracts with the city because of hiring practices. We'll take a look at the current state of Minnesota's work training programs in light of recent budget cuts. And we'll take a short ride on the Yvonne T, a boat with a slightly shady past. More on these and other stories right after Independent Network News.
Independent Network News, brought to you by Master Blend Coffee.
Good evening. The White House said today that President Reagan considers the Israeli air raid on the Iraqi nuclear plant a tragedy. But in the continuing thunder of criticism of the attack, Prime Minister Begin intensifies his rebuttal, underlining Israel's position that the raid was preventive defense. Today he claimed that his Air Force attack actually destroyed a secret plant for making atomic bombs located more than 100 feet below the devastated reactor. And Begin claims an international team of investigators never realized that secret plant was there. And he also says the United States has no right to tell Israel how to use its American-made weapons. The diplomatic fallout over the incident continues, and we have two reports from Washington from Ford Rowan and Drew Scott.
In this first case of presidential crisis diplomacy, Ronald Reagan acted diplomatically, neither making new commitments nor demanding them. The Arabs came first, the ambassadors from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Morocco, Jordan, and Sudan. They warned that it's hard to dissociate the United States from what Israel does. Afterwards, the ambassador of the Sudan said that the suspension of the sale of 4 F-16s will not be enough.
Steps that have been taken are initial stages, a very positive reaction, but that the steps to address the basic problems have not been taken yet. We drew his attention to the fact that the whole world, and especially the Arab world, is awaiting in anticipation the actions that can be taken.
After the Arabs said the United States had not done enough to Israel, the Israeli ambassador arrived to say that it was already too much. He carried a message from Menachem Begin expressing deep concern about the suspension of F-16 sales to Israel. White House sources say the president did not press the Israeli for a promise that similar raids would not be attempted again. Instead, Reagan reassured Israel there will be no change in the basic relationship between the United States and Israel. Reassurance is the theme here in this first test of Reagan, the crisis diplomat. He sought to reassure Israel, tried to placate the Arabs. It's no small trick, for America's influence in the Middle East was badly blasted in the attack on the Iraqi reactor. It undercut America's diplomatic overture to the Arabs, embarrassed moderate Arab states, undercut Washington's contention that Moscow is the real troublemaker, and made the United States appear impotent in restraining Israel. Beyond the symbolic suspension of the jet sales, today's soft talk by the president is an effort to start rebuilding that influence. Ford Rowan, Independent Network News, Washington.
Members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee have to decide if Israel violated the terms of the 1952 Mutual Defense Assistance Arrangement, which prohibits countries from using American-made weapons for anything but self-defense. Chairman Percy announced next Thursday secret testimony will be given by the CIA and by representatives from the White House and the State Department on events leading up to and including Israel's raid on Iraq.
Did the United States government have intelligence as to what was happening, and if not, why not?
Democrats Pell and Cranston say they agree with Republicans. There is the need of a congressional probe.
Was the action a defensive action or an offensive action? And that's really a matter of judgment.
Senator Glenn says realistically arms shipments to Israel won't end, but there will be a lot more fine print on any future deals.
I think we might come out of this with quite different restrictions on future sales, commitments, what the equipment could be used for, better guarantees that it will be used for that, perhaps better consultation with Israel.
Privately, senators said they believe next week's hearings will further embarrass and anger the Israelis, but they said they have to do it to make the point. Drew Scott, Independent Network News, Capitol Hill.
A thundering shout for revenge. Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi has called for joint Arab action to destroy Israel's nuclear plant in the Negev desert. Gaddafi says Israel's raid in Iraq justifies retaliation adding, "We declare that Israel's existence is contradictory to the security of the Arab world." The 21-member Arab League met in Baghdad. It passed resolutions calling for worldwide isolation of Israel by a universal break in diplomatic ties and a cutoff of economic, technical, and military aid. The League criticized the United States for supplying Israel with arms. There was speculation that an oil boycott of this country might be called for, but that did not happen.
And Pat, it's an issue that has been boiling under the surface of Middle Eastern tensions for some time now, the bleak prospect of Arabs and Israelis armed with nuclear bombs. Can anything be done? Well, tomorrow's edition of the Christian Science Monitor reports that some experts think the way to confront the problem is simply for Western nations not to help Arabs build bombs. And as for the Israelis, they have little faith in the nuclear non-proliferation treaty of 10 years ago, and they're convinced the Middle East is at a nuclear crossroads. And the Monitor says they will deal with it in their own way, leaving their defense to nobody else, including the United States.
Washington is angry and alarmed at what it sees as the Soviets' latest threat to the Polish state. A letter sent by the Kremlin earlier this week has sent shockwaves through Poland's ruling party, and as Charles Quinn reports, the U.S. has put Moscow on notice that such actions violate international law.
The department said today that a new serious situation is developing in Poland as a result of a harsh Soviet warning that reform in Poland has gone too far. Spokesman David Passage chided the Russians for acting outside of what he called accepted international behavior.
The threatening tone of the recent letter from the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, a text of which has just become available, amounts, in our view, to interference in the internal affairs of Poland.
Passage also said that Soviet military forces in and around Poland remain in a high state of readiness, capable of moving quickly. The latest crisis stemmed from Soviet efforts to unseat Polish Communist Party leader Kania by encouraging hardliners to attack him at an emergency meeting of the Polish Central Committee. Among other things, the Russian letter charged that a wave of anti-communism and anti-Sovietism is developing in Poland, and it implied that Kania wasn't doing enough to stop it. Even so, Kania's supporters turned back moves to force a showdown, and there was speculation the committee vote was the last chance the Russians will have before the Polish Party Congress next month, when an entirely new Central Committee will be elected. Officials here believe the Russians still have a few political cards to play to persuade Kania not to push reform too far. But because of changes in party rules, the new Party Congress is expected to virtually eliminate the last of the hardliners. And so the Russians could be faced with the choice of living with a new, more democratic Poland or doing something they really don't want to do: invade. Charles Quinn, Independent Network News at the State Department.
And coming up, Democrats organize for a showdown on the Reagan tax cut plan. Sports editor Jerry Gerard covers the Major League strike crisis and the story of a $35 million lawsuit over a stunt for a motion picture that went wrong.
In just a few seconds, I'll give you an address that could change your career. An address that could help you find the job you've been dreaming of and help you land it. It's where you write to get this, the National Business Employment Weekly. Every week, the National Business Employment Weekly gives you hundreds of executive, managerial, and professional jobs available across the nation. Top jobs in top companies, paying $25,000 to $250,000. And no-nonsense articles like these with advice on resumes, career advancement, salaries. Every week, the kind of jobs you've been dreaming of and the help you need to land one. Now, here's that address. To get the next 6 issues rushed to you by first-class mail, just send a check for $18 to National Business Employment Weekly, Box 9900, Springfield, Massachusetts, 01101. 6 issues, $18. That's Box 9900, Springfield, Massachusetts. Jobs this good don't stay open long, so write today. Also available at newsstands.
We're going to Florida on Easter on vacation. Dad said for me, it's only $49 round trip.
And we're saving with a Great Eastern deal, too.
We're going to Walt Disney World, go snorkeling, play volleyball.
Just a little golf, some sun, relax on the beach.
I gotta see an alligator, a whale.
A whale? A little fishing, nothing too strenuous.
This summer, kids can fly to Florida for only $49 round trip on Eastern. Adults save, too.
Well, we gotta rest up now. We got a lot to do.
One shot is what it's all about. It has to be taken with one shot.
Now, for the first time on television, Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter, winner of 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Deer Hunter stars Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep, John Savage, Christopher Walken, and John Cazale. If you see no other motion picture on television this season, you must see Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter.
The unedited television premiere of The Deer Hunter continues tomorrow night at 7 here on Channel 9. Discretion in viewing is strongly advised.
While House Democrats attacked President Reagan's plan for a 25% tax cut, the president held a series of meetings aimed at building support for his across-the-board proposal. John Aubuchon reports.
The first sales pitch of the day was to labor leaders, 14 of them, including Teamsters head Roy Williams, who faces arraignment tomorrow on federal bribery charges. Longshoremen's president Thomas Gleason said afterward that the president's tax package will have union support, and he saw no give on the president's part. Administration spokesmen were taking a similar line on Capitol Hill as the House Ways and Means Committee continued its tax bill hearings, with Democrats charging that the Reagan plan would leave the poor paying higher taxes. The administration again rejected suggestions that the cuts be retargeted to help lower-income taxpayers. Late in the day, President Reagan hosted business and state and local government leaders who back his economic package. He asked for their help in getting his tax bill passed and took a dig at Democratic critics.
We're asked to believe that their proposal is more compassionate to the working people, but their proposal won't even match the built-in tax increase that they themselves are responsible for. We absolutely must have, across the board, a 3-year 25% rate reduction for every American taxpayer, and we're not going to settle for less.
Congressman Jack Kemp, one of the authors of Reagan's original tax plan, was at the White House for talks this afternoon. No word on the results of those talks, but as he left, Kemp said Reagan does have the votes to get his tax bill passed. John Aubuchon, Independent Network News, the White House.
Almost a year ago, a 22-year-old movie stunt woman became an instant quadriplegic when a car stunt scheduled as a near miss turned out to be a head-on collision. And now Heidi Von Beltz has filed suit for $35 million, charging Burt Reynolds and 2 production companies with negligence. Ms. Von Beltz was filming this car chase sequence for the Burt Reynolds Farrah Fawcett film, The Cannonball Rally, when a high-speed stunt suddenly turned sour.
After we found out that maybe the brakes were, something was wrong with the brakes and the steering, the car was again checked out. And after that, I felt the car was in working condition. Unfortunately, everything was happening so fast that I really wasn't aware of anything until I was in the hospital.
And Miss Von Beltz says that aside from problems with the stunt car's brakes and steering, no seat belts were provided.
Last December, Mark David Chapman claimed innocence by reason of insanity for the murder of former Beatle John Lennon. But now Chapman has reportedly told his lawyer that God paid him a visit in his jail cell and directed him to plead guilty. At a pre-trial hearing in New York City today, Chapman's attorney submitted a sealed request to the judge. He is believed to be asking for a new hearing to determine Chapman's competence to stand trial.
Most of us are no strangers to tragedy and to death, but for one family in Miami, Florida, the ravages of cancer are something they've learned to live with and die with for the past 140 years. Art Carlson reports.
Cancer has been no stranger to the Ray Sutherland family. Every generation except one since 1840 has been ravaged by the disease, but none worse than the present generation. The family lost a son 14 years ago to leukemia. Ray Sutherland has had 2 operations for brain tumors and is currently in serious condition. Steve lost a leg to the disease 5 years ago. Michael Sutherland has been battling cancer for the past 14 years, undergoing a total of 7 spinal operations, some of them experimental. 2 years ago, surgeons fashioned an artificial vertebrae from his ribs, trying to replace the joint destroyed by his bone cancer. This group portrait 3 weeks ago was the last time the family was together. Researchers have been baffled by the severity and incidence of the disease in this particular family and believe the cause may be a missing element in their body's natural defense. Tests could go on for years, but there are no definitive answers. And the Sutherlands continue in the face of odds that would have crushed most of us a long time ago. I'm Art Carlson for Independent Network News, Miami.
And there is a tragic footnote to this already sad story. 16-year-old Michael Sutherland died last night at Children's Hospital in Cincinnati from complications of malignant tumors on his spine.
Bet you think these pain relievers are alike, Mrs. Talbot.
Sure do.
Let's see. 2 regular tablets, 650 milligrams. These other pain relievers also, 650 milligrams. 650 milligrams. Still think they're all the same?
Yep.
Look here. 800 milligrams.
Anacin. I didn't know Anacin had more pain reliever.
Yes, more pain reliever and a special combination of medical ingredients. That's the Anacin difference. So now which pain reliever?
Anacin.
Anacin tablets or capsules. Get the Anacin difference.
You can tell by country mile, by your smile, you've got that brand new feeling.
Kellogg's gives it to you in more great ways than anybody. Like Kellogg's All Brand, no cereal gives you more fiber.
Yes, you've got it, and it shows by your smile, goodness knows.
Or Kellogg's 40% Bran Flakes with that wholesome wheat taste.
Get that brand new feeling, that Kellogg's brand new feeling. Yeah.
Merritt Chevrolet announces free factory air conditioning plus free rust proofing with every 1981 Monte Carlo, Malibu, and Citation in stock. Drive away in roomy comfort in one of America's favorite gas-stingy cars. And you'll drive away with free pen seal rust proofing plus factory air conditioning free from Merritt. This offer absolutely ends at 5 p.m. Monday, June 15th. That's only at Merritt Chevrolet, I-94 and Century Avenue across from 3M on St. Paul's East Side.
The automobile business has become a numbers game. All you hear from car manufacturers these days are gas mileage claims. But the fact is, you won't get good gas mileage unless you take care of your car, drive sensibly, and use a quality gasoline. That's why you should use Skelly. Skelly helps you get the proper performance out of your new car, your old car, any car at all. At Skelly, we want you to get the most out of your car.
During the dark hours in this country, a big earthquake hit southeastern Iran, centered about 500 miles southeast of Tehran, and we know that many hundreds of people were killed and many are still buried under the rubble of crumbled buildings. Prime Minister Ali Rajai says that he understands as many as 3,000 people may have died, and a massive relief operation is underway now.
Negotiators in the baseball dispute are ready to talk through the night to save the season before tomorrow's strike deadline. Sports editor Jerry Gerard reports on a day of bargaining that began this morning. Jerry?
Yeah, they met this morning for 2 hours, broke for lunch saying there was no progress, came back for 1 hour, then broke for 5 more hours, very unusual, and then resumed talks at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern Time. The only moment of optimism came after the afternoon meeting when the two top negotiators met the press.
During those discussions, the major league clubs advanced several ideas that were in the areas that the association has raised concern over. Those ideas are now with the association. I will not comment on them since out of courtesy and respect to them, they have certainly the right to sit back and evaluate them in private before we discuss them.
Mr. Grebe chose to characterize their proposals as how great movements, etc. I will tell you that the one idea we presented, in my opinion, was 4 times as significant as what he was talking about.
As it stands now, a player must remain with his first team for 6 years before becoming a free agent. If he leaves, there's compensation, a draft pick. The owners say that's not enough. The players say the owners want too much. Pat?
Thank you, Jerry. An airplane powered solely by energy from the sun will attempt to make the Channel crossing from France to England. Its inventor, Dr. Paul McCready of California, first created a plane powered by human energy. Now his latest invention, the Solar Challenger, uses energy from the sun to power its motor. 16,000 solar cells on the wings and stabilizer provide electricity for its 3-horsepower engine. The craft can attain a speed of 45 miles per hour and climb high enough so if the engine fails, it can glide to safety.
new Maxwell House Master Blend coffee?
The new ground coffee that can save us money.
But how does it taste?
That means it tastes like Maxwell House.
New Master Blend, 100% pure ground coffee. Not concentrated, not flaked, because we make it a special way. It's the great tasting coffee that can save you money.
Great coffee.
New Maxwell House Master Blend. Great tasting coffee that can save you money.
100% pure orange juice from Florida. It isn't just for breakfast anymore.
Add the enjoyment of a great-sounding Kimball organ to your home this month. Just $12.88 includes music, phones, delivery, orientation classes, and Schmidt's promise that you can play.
The factory authorized it. They said Slumberland could take $100 to $250 off the Simmons Beauty Rest. That includes a free bed frame. At Slumberland, you're going to get a good buy.
The Business Report, brought to you by the investment firm of Dean Witter Rentals.
The paradox. The American Medical Association Pension Fund owns $1,400,000 worth of tobacco stocks. Yesterday at the AMA convention in Chicago, this was described as an embarrassment to the AMA, but the delegates voted down a plan to order the tobacco stocks sold. Today, the AMA Policy Board did pass a resolution urging the federal government to wipe out its subsidies to tobacco growers because the medical profession believes smoking is a health hazard. Just as the heavy driving season arrives in this country, 5 major oil companies have cut the wholesale price of their gasoline as consumption goes down and competition intensifies. From Atlantic City, the gambling capital of the East, news that the casinos raked in close to $90 million in winnings last month. And that kind of handle may set off a new round of expensive expansion plans along the boardwalk. In precious metals today, gold was down 90 cents an ounce, but silver was up over 15 cents in New York. On Wall Street, the mood was buoyant, especially after the report from the government showing retail sales were up only a sliver in May. That indicates that our economy has slowed down, but it also has investors believing that interest rates will fall. While this may lead to a mild short recession, as one Treasury official conceded today, the general belief is that it will be the base for a more vital economy down the road. There were a lot of real believers in the stock market action today. With almost all of the averages up in heavy trading, the Dow Jones Industrials closed above the 1,000 mark for the first time since late April.
Come on, you guys, hands up! Defense!
It's your broker from Dean Witter.
I want to see you hustle.
Some people just aren't easy to please, especially when it comes to their investments.
Josie, we do it.
You look like you just heard from Dean Witter.
At Dean Witter, we can give even the hard-to-please investor something to smile about.
Okay, let's see that defense.
You look like you just heard from Dean Witter.
I came out here to tell you something important about country time. You already know it tastes like good old-fashioned lemonade, and I want to tell you why. The richest flavor in the lemon is right here. You can even smell it. It's zestier and tastier than any other part of the lemon. And it's what gives country time lemonade flavored drink its great taste. Natural lemon flavor from real lemons. That's what makes country time taste like good old-fashioned lemonade.
The city of New Orleans is still reeling from the effects of last night's torrential rainstorm. The band of showers swept into town late in the afternoon, triggering severe flooding in the streets and swamping some homes in up to 2 feet of water. One man trying to pull a stalled trailer from the floodwaters was drowned. Most of the water has subsided tonight and the cleanup is underway, but authorities have yet to assess the extent of the damage.
And Pat, some more ominous signs from nature that could create some real weather problems for many millions of people over a wide area of our country during the next few days. Meteorologist Bob Harris has been watching the developments very closely. Here's his prediction. Bob?
Well, Bill, unless I miss my bet, there's going to be quite a battle between contrasting air masses across the nation's midsection during the next few days, and that type of weather pattern at this time of the year can produce widespread heavy thunderstorm activity with possibly a large outbreak of tornadoes. Now, let's take a look at our latest weather satellite pictures, and you can see clusters of thunderstorms developing over the Gulf states and the Midwest. Some of those thunderstorms dump the heavy rain in New Orleans, and also some of them heading eastward towards Georgia and South Carolina earlier today. Meanwhile, the northeastern states were having a wonderful day as cool, dry air prevailed. And checking the western half of the country, it was sunny and hot again from interior California to New Mexico, while scattered rain showers occurred over the mountains of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Okay, let's move over to the Friday morning weather map and see how that atmospheric war is taking shape. You remember last night I was telling you about the jet stream that had stratified the air masses across the country. Cool across the top, warm in the middle, and very, very hot across the deep south. What has happened in the last 12 to 18 hours is that the jet stream steering winds have begun to buckle. And as a result, a storm system is forming in the Rockies tonight. And as it begins to head eastward, it is going to mix very, very sultry air in the south and very cool, dry air in the north. Cool and warm air masses just don't mix. It's like oil and water. And as a result, we're going to get a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity across the nation's midsection. Some of those thunderstorms could produce tornadoes. We're going to have to watch that situation carefully. Meanwhile, out in the west, our friends in Santa Rosa, California will have a lovely day tomorrow with a high of 82 degrees, and the heat will go on throughout the desert areas. Here's Bill.
Thank you, Bob. It promises to be a blockbuster of the season. Two of Hollywood's most inventive directors have let their genius for special effects run wild. And the result, a spectacular adventure, and film critic Jeffrey Lyons is here to show us the magic. Jeff?
What a movie, Bill. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark. When Stephen Jaws' Close Encounters of the Third Kind Spielberg directs a story conceived by George Star Wars American Graffiti Lucas, the result is bound to be good at least. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, which opens everywhere tomorrow, isn't just good. It's incredible. Absolutely one of the most thrilling, exciting films ever made. Harrison Ford, of course known as Han Solo as well from Star Wars, plays Indiana Jones, an archaeology professor here in South America in 1936. Here he makes the first of a dozen incredible he'll-never-get-out-of-this-one type escapes. Later the story really gets more exciting and witty as he seeks to beat the Nazis out of getting the long-lost Ark of the Covenant, no less. Any army with the Ark at its fore would of course be invincible. But first to the danger at hand. He'll never get out of it. Get out of that one. Of course, it's a spoof of those Saturday afternoon serials of yore. Every frame, word, and thrilling moment is carefully textured, so you'll be left gaping afterwards. I've replayed the film a dozen times in my head, and I intend to see it at least 4 or 5 times very soon. Raiders of the Lost Ark, a thunderbolt of adventure and brilliance. I'm Jeffrey Lyons. Pat?
Your enthusiasm is absolutely contagious, Jeffrey. Tonight, we'd like to welcome KFTY, Channel 50 of Santa Rosa, California, to the Independent Network News family. That's our report for tonight, June 11th, 1981. Thank you for joining us.
Independent Network News, brought to you by the makers of Anison.
Here at home, the state treasury is facing a possible billion-dollar deficit, all because of a little mistake in the wording of the new tax law. When lawmakers met in special session last Saturday, they intended to raise taxes by adjusting the formula for income tax indexing. But the way the bill reads, taxpayers could divide their income in half after adjustment for indexing and then pay taxes. In other words, somebody making $25,000 a year would end up having to pay taxes on only $13,000. Already, several taxpayer organizations have begun lawsuits designed to make sure the law stays. The developer of the Minneapolis City Center project may be barred from future construction projects unless it complies with the city ordinance. At issue is the use of women and minority workers. The City Center project means a lot of jobs, and some of the work is supposed to go to women and minorities. The city of Minneapolis has an agreement with the Oxford Development Company to ensure that. It breaks down like this. 6% of the skilled workers on the project are supposed to be minorities. 6.9% are supposed to be women. In addition to that, roughly 8% of the construction companies that help build the city center are supposed to be female or minority owned. But the Affirmative Action Office says the Oxford company is in violation of some of those requirements.
The goals for skilled trades on the site were 6% minority and 6.9% women. The actual utilization for April was 6.4% minority, which places them above the goal of 6%, and 1.2% female. And the only explanation we received for there being such a low utilization of women is that there are not that many women in the labor unions.
And Blackwell argues that the developer did not actively search to meet the requirements for women workers.
As far as meeting the WMBE goals and working affirmatively with women and minority business enterprises, we weren't aware of all of the resources perhaps that might have been available to us in the past. We are now fully aware of the resources of the city. PCL has indicated a full willingness to work cooperatively and seek their cooperation and to require subcontractors to do the same thing. It is certainly remains our goal to achieve those levels of satisfaction, at least as far as the plan was concerned, before this job runs its course.
The City Council has several options in resolving this matter. It can bar Oxford from future building projects unless it complies with the ordinance. It can go to court to make sure the contract is enforced, or it could charge the company with a misdemeanor. But those options will be held off for a while. The Civil Rights Commission will hold a hearing on the complaints. After that, the council will decide what to do. If the House joins the Senate in approving slashes in the food stamp program, 9,500 Minnesotans stand to lose their benefits. Nationally, the proposed cuts total $1.8 billion. That would mean a loss of about $11 million for Minnesota. 60% of those affected, or about 5,700 people, would come from the metropolitan area. The remaining 40% would come from rural areas. Food stamps are not the only social program expected to be affected by congressional budget cuts. A part of the final package may be participation in work programs for those accepting benefits. John McNichol takes a look at Minnesota's work fair programs.
A lot of people who are in my circumstances, single women who are head of household with a couple of dependents that need some education so they can be self-sufficient and they can become active taxpayers instead of tax takers.
This woman has been on AFDC for 5 years. She has a 5-year-old child, and she receives $344 a month from welfare. Her rent for a one-bedroom apartment is $265 a month. In addition, the daycare for her child is paid, and she's received a grant of $3,500 for her 9 months training to become a computer programmer. And according to Minnesota welfare official Don Grelnick, training is the key to getting people back to work through the work incentive program.
There are a number of components in the WIN program. On-the-job training is one, where they are placed in employment for a length of time and they learn on the job. And then the employer is obligated, if the person works out satisfactorily, to hire that individual.
Although AFDC is by far the larger of the two main welfare programs, the other, general assistance, that applies mostly to single men, is undergoing some changes. The 1981 Minnesota legislature passed a law where they will only pay counties for 5 weeks of general assistance per individual. Some counties now require GA recipients to work in parks, hospitals, or welfare offices to pay back their assistance. Any welfare system will probably always be controversial, but getting as many recipients as possible back to work as soon as possible seems to be everyone's goal. This is John McNichol for Channel 9 News.
Coming up, there may be a surprise entry in the upcoming U.S. Senate race in Minnesota. We'll look at a computer system designed to save cities some money, and we'll take a short cruise on a yacht with a past, not altogether legitimate past. Those stories and more tonight on Primetime News.
Compare the Oceder power strip with the other guy. Oceder cleans better, wrings out, drier, cleans up, faster. For cleaner, easier, faster mopping, depend on the O-Cedar Power Strip mop.
O-Cedar makes your life easier.
Here it is, the new J generation from Pontiac. J2000, a new generation of four-cylinder front-wheel drive Pontiacs with rack and pinion steering and McPherson strut suspension standard. J2000 with reclining front bucket seats, AM radio with integral digital clock, and side window defoggers standard. Featuring a new coupe specially equipped for high mileage. J2000 for 1982, a new generation of Pontiac know-how.
Frank says, watch for this coupon in this Friday's newspaper and save 50%. With it, you get 1/2 off any one landscape plant of your choice. Shade trees, ornamental and fruit trees, evergreens, flowering and ornamental shrubs, and more. A 1/2 off coupon, good for any one landscape plant in the store. Thanks, Frank.
Beautiful things begin at Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
The political pack is breaking and running for office. Yesterday, Attorney General Warren Spanis announced he would challenge Governor Quee for his office. And today, former Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy said he is considering a challenge to Republican Senator David Durenberger. McCarthy flew into Minnesota today from his Virginia home to discuss the idea. St. Paul has already discovered one cost-effective plan. The city passed a resolution that could give St. Paul as many as 150 free bus shelters. Private companies would supply the shelters in return for the free advertising space inside the shelters. And starting in July, you could be arrested if you take your radio or lunch with you on the bus. An amendment passed by the St. Paul City Council forbids playing radios and tape recorders on public buses. It also prohibits eating, drinking, littering, and disruptive behavior. A request by Ma Bell for a $102 million hike in phone rates was pared just a mite today. Actually, the paring was a recommendation from the Minnesota Department of Public Service. They suggest that something in the neighborhood of $8 million is a more realistic figure. But a spokesman for Northwestern Bell said today they'll rebut that suggestion in hearings over the summer. The Department of Public Service joins 11 other groups trying to block the rate hike. The Public Utilities Commission will make a final decision later this year. For more than 600 representatives to the 11th Annual Livestock Marketing Congress at the Hyatt Regency, this is definitely a time of good news and bad news. Following a 5-year slide in beef production from the all-time high in 1975, the beef industry is now on the upswing. But this morning, consumer advocate Ralph Nader gave the crowd some of the bad news. He claimed that the current vegetarian movement is not just a fad. Plus, people are increasingly worried about high levels of saturated fats in meat.
More people are being told by physicians and other health groups that there's a growing connection between diet and disease, increasing connection between high fat, animal fat content and heart disease. The former head of the National Cancer Institute, a very cautious scientist, Arthur Upton, made a statement about the growing evidence linking high animal fat content with certain kinds of cancer, and all this is getting through to people.
And Nader said the Reagan hands-off approach to regulation will probably reduce the chance of federal antitrust legal actions. A service that helps improve and manage city government operations is available in the Twin Cities now. Through Controlled Data's computer network, local officials can exchange information with other cities and learn what works. Debbie Emblem explains.
The service is called Logan, for Local Government Information Network. A desktop terminal and telephone is all you need to link into the Logan network. You dial a local telephone number, which hooks up with the main computer in Maryland. Then type in the keywords about information you need, such as energy, housing, or basic services for cities. Then you'll get a printout of the issue. It might include a description of the problem, how to go about solving it, including a list of resources. And it will give information to one part of the country about what works or doesn't work somewhere else. It's also a telecommunications system.
Once a city official, for example, has done a